Welcome back to SEC Media Days 2026 in Tampa, Florida. SportsCall Auburn with Ryan Lavoie and Brooks Childers. We are now pleased to be joined by Justin Ferguson of the Auburn Observer. Justin, as always, we appreciate the time. Great to catch up with you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Y'all got quite the setup here. I feel it's more intimidating when I just talk to you on the than from when I usually just talk to you on the phone. I guess I don't have to worry about JJ asking me a ridiculous question right now, so that's good.
He is lingering, though.
He's lurking is the best way to describe what JJ is doing.
Man, we're here on Auburn Day, and obviously Alex Golesh and company have the ambush tour last night here in Tampa, and I'm sure a lot of memories for him and for Byrum Brown, and obviously they could have taken others from South Florida to this trip, but just getting the sense as he continues this transition now almost finally with game number 1, what do you think that this place means to him and just some of the players and that sort of thing?
I mean, it is definitely something where you see how much this place matters and how excited they are for the future. Is because this will always be the place to help really launch them, especially for a guy like Byrum who, you don't get to be an SEC quarterback without showing out here. And you got to also remember Byrum Brown was a guy who was there before Golesh even got to USF. So he really paid his dues at a place like this. And so you come back here, it's a lot of good memories. It's good familiar. They talked about earlier about going to the steakhouses on Monday night in Tampa. Yeah, really cool. And I think it's got to be fun for those guys that, this could have been anywhere. I mean, Media Days has never been in Tampa. It's really funny because, we're south of the furthest south. the SEC team in Florida, we're further south than they are. So, we're not even in the footprint technically, but, it's definitely something that you can kind of tell that this place means a lot to these guys. And, it really kind of – I think motivates them and gives them kind of that perspective of all right, now you're here. It's it's SEC Media Days. You see the logo everywhere. It's like you're in the big leagues again. And for Golesh, it's the first time being in the big leagues as a head coach.
You mentioned talking about the steakhouse. That was in the electronic media room. Something else he was asked about in that electronic media room was the comparing Auburn's success or what potential success to what Indiana did.
Yeah.
Where Curt Cignetti goes from JMU to Indiana, brings a lot of his players up, and they have pretty quick success. I'm not saying, and Golesh chuckled and said national championships would be nice that quick, but looking at that kind of formula,
right.
and when he was asked about it, do you think that that's something that you could see, not a national championship, but immediate success for this team bringing all those players over?
It's an interesting thing is that there are so many different ways to build a team now. It's no longer stack up the most 5 stars as possible, and then you're going to go to the 14 playoff, and you're going to have a chance to win a national title. It was when it was the Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia Invitational for a while. That, it's over. Indiana won a national title. Ole Miss almost played for a national title. There's so many different ways to get to that point. One of the most interesting things this offseason is obviously Auburn was in, talks, deep conversations to get John Summerall. And obviously Alex Golesh had conversations with Florida as well. And so it ends up Summerall at Florida, Golesh at Auburn. And they've gone about it 2 different ways. Summerall has gone in where he goes to Florida and he's like, this is a good roster that we have. Let's try to retain as much of these guys as we can. Let's get some bigger name transfers, not worry as much about the continuity from Tulane, and just kind of drop in and try to do it that way. Golesh, on the other hand, here's a guy that his success at USF is why he's here, right? You take a team that was terrible and make them into something relevant again. And so why not carry as much of that as you can? When you have a Byrum Brown who's got 1 more year of eligibility, why not go do that? Why not go get his receivers? Why not go get his center, a running back, several other players, a lot of the coaching staff? So it's 2 different ways to do it. But, yes, Golesh is doing more of the Cignetti model. And, look, that's going to be the ultimate example. That's going to be the extreme, deal breaker there. No one's, I don't think, is ever going to be able to replicate that because I think there's a real chance Cignetti just might be better than anybody at coaching because you're not supposed to do what they've done there. But that familiarity is good, and we've seen teams be able to hit the ground running. At some of the lower levels, too, in the group of 5 and beyond, you go get somebody who's done something well, get a lot of what he's done, to follow him, and then, see if that can click. And, I think for Auburn, when you were not able – and look, they retained some good guys off this team, like Xavier Atkins. That ain't cheap to get Xavier Atkins to come back, some of these guys. But when you're not able to retain every Cam Coleman, Kayan Lee, Jay Crawford, Malcolm Simmons type of player. The familiarity, I think, is a good way to kind of kickstart it, and I think that's where I really like where Auburn's heading into this season, because you have that familiarity, that continuity, and most importantly for Golesh, it's on offense. That's his side of the ball, and that's the thing that Auburn has desperately needed for the last several years, especially last season, considering you're only a few touchdowns away from that season looking completely different. Well, this is his side of the ball. This is his baby, so why not try to import that as much of that as possible?
And there's a lot of other variables to it, obviously, also, but you're always trying to weigh, or at least in this situation, the amount of talent you had, because it was clear you had a bunch of it, look where it all went to.
Correct.
But then also the type of fit that's necessary to play the optimal amount of quality football. And this is what they're doing in bringing in these guys. And it leads me to, I guess, if you've got these receivers that have worked with Byrum Brown,
right,
the coach and quarterback have worked together, you've got running backs you really like, I think we're down to the offensive line and what they're going to be, because if they can have a better line than they've had the last, I don't know, a lot of time.
I was about to say, welcome to year 8 of it's all down to Auburn's offensive line.
Right.
Yeah.
If they can have that, you would kind of ask yourself, other than just playing incredible competition, why would they not be a very good offense?
Yeah, and I think the good thing there with Golesh is that track record. And one of the reasons why, John Cohen's talked about this, one of the main reasons why they went and got Alex Golesh is not just the fact that they're really good on offense. He's got a great track record on the offensive side of the ball. It's immediate, okay? USF won 4 games in the 3 years before he got there, and then he immediately takes on the ball in year 1. Tennessee, think about how bad Tennessee was when he goes with Heupel from UCF to Tennessee. He gets the offense coordinator job, and immediately they become a top 10, 15, 20 offense in the country. They're the number 1 offense in the country a year later. It's not just the fact that his system works. It's his system works quickly. Offensive line's going to be big, though. And he talked about it today in that electronic room where, and I wrote about this at the Observer earlier this summer, if you want to build an elite offensive line, it's going to take time. And he talked about year 2, 3, 4, same guys, same system, same position coach, same strength condition. That's how you build an offensive line. You go look, the best offensive lines in college football these last few years, it's guys who have been there 3, 4, 5 years ago. Notre Dame, Michigan, Oregon, like Oklahoma used to do this every year. You got to do that. You can't do that in year 1. That's impossible, right? So for this year, it is about trying to set a foundation. You patchwork it this year with transfers, but the goal is why they have guys, they went out and got Stanton Ramil and Joe Simmons, and obviously Cole Best comes over with them from USF. Those guys are important to play right now, but you don't want to build the whole plane out of that. It was important for them to have guys like a Derek Plaz, who's got multiple years of eligibility remaining, to have guys like Ty Buster, who's there, Wilson Zaire. Like, you got to have that. And so for this offensive line, it might not be very good in year 1, but you weren't ever going to have an awesome offensive line in year 1 anyway. So I think for this offensive line, it's just going to be how well can you get together, gel together, stay healthy, and make the most of it. Because there is going to be a cap. There is going to be a ceiling on how good this offensive line is going to be, because the best offensive lines in this league are guys who have played together 3, 4, 5 years. You don't have that. You would hope to have that in a few years, and they're definitely recruiting well enough to get to that point. You just got to make do in the time being. So yes, you have to do that. The good news is, as much as Golesh likes tight ends, as much as he likes playing with power and like personnel stuff like that, and winning at the line of scrimmage, this is also an offense that is designed to stretch the field as horizontally and vertically as possible to relieve some of the pressure off that offensive line. It's not like, when Auburn had a really bad offensive line when Brian Harsin first got it. Well, pro-style offense with a bad offensive line, you're going to die. These modern spread offenses, the veer and shoot, the kind of stuff like that, you can kind of mitigate some of that. Well, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the difference between Auburn being a team that surprises people this year and is really good and wins some games they probably shouldn't, and one that's just going to be fighting tooth and nail just to make a bowl this year, I think the difference is going to come down to how well that offensive line plays.
It is July 21st. The season is a little over a month away. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Auburn surprising somebody. If you had to make a prediction right now of one game that Auburn wins that they're not supposed to this year, who do you think is most likely to get that?
At Tennessee, I like that. I like that spot, and why I like that spot is, obviously you're not supposed to go and win in Neyland in year one, but Auburn has the potential to maybe be going into that game 3-1, 4-0 with some momentum before you get to that just absolutely really brutal stretch in October. Golesh obviously has that familiarity with Heupel. He was there. He's got that knowledge of what – even they've changed, and obviously, but they know what they do. I also keep in mind Tennessee's former defensive coordinator is now Auburn safeties coach. And then I think the other big one is, like, you have that familiarity, and if you want to catch Tennessee, I think you're going to want to catch Tennessee early. If it is Faison Brandon or, George McIntyre or whoever it is, they're going to have a freshman of some kind playing quarterback for them more than likely than not. So you might want to get those guys before it gets – week 7, 8, 9 when they've been established and settled. So that's the one that stands out to me. That is like, look, it's going to be like you got to take care of business against Baylor. It's going to be a hard fought game. I think Baylor's going to be a lot better on defense than they were last year. Obviously, Florida and Vanderbilt are going to be huge games because they're all big, especially at home. But you get some momentum off of that. You hit that, and that's the one where I can see we could be sitting here talking about Auburn potentially being 4-1 or better. Before you hit the stretch where it's like just survive, it could be big, but that's a timing for it. You play Tennessee later in the year, it's not the same as catching them, I think, early on, and especially if Auburn can come off that with, having played 2 or 3, I guess at that point 3, power conference teams that they feel like, they did well against.
This could be unnecessarily deep thinking, also known as overthinking. But
it's like my entire business model. But go ahead.
But, all right, so Auburn's last few offensive coaches, with maybe the exception of Brian Harsin, you had a Gus Malzahn system that at the time was innovative. Mm-hmm. People thought it got stale, needed to integrate different passing concepts. You had a Hugh Freeze system, an RPO system that worked beautifully at Ole Miss but didn't evolve.
A decade too late, yeah.
Right. With Alex Golesh, this is more of a newer concept offense.
Correct.
What kind of legs, if we were to predict the future, and again, that's not necessarily for Alex Golesh's success, but just this offense in general, these concepts, what kind of legs might it have, and could it fall the same fate as recent spread offenses where it has a shelf life and then you really need to evolve it?
Yeah, I think he's done a really good job of evolving over the years. For example, the offense they had at Tennessee with Hendon Hooker at quarterback is not the same offense they had with Byrum Brown at USF and what they're bringing to Auburn. It's not the same that we had, that would have been Mackenzie Milton, I guess, at UCF back then. So it's like it's different. You've got to be – he talked about it today. You've got to be able to adapt. You've got to be able to evolve. I think there's a danger when you play some of these offenses where it goes like RPO-heavy ones or – we run a system. It's like, all right, what happens if I figure out your system? What do you do as a counter? What is the counter punch? I think the counter punch that Golesh has had over the years, and what I've heard from people at Tennessee say was what's kind of been missing since he left at Tennessee is Alex Golesh is a veer and shoot guy because of he worked at under Heupel. Where was he at before that? Iowa State, where they would run 3 tight ends on the field and just try to pound you into submission that way. So you get some of that with it. It's not just you spread it, and if you're fast enough and you're like you can, win in the box like that, and like, okay, we have a counter for that. We can bring more guys in. We can evolve a little bit more. So I think that's the thing is that we've already seen over the course of his career that Alex Golesh has an offense that works, that adapts, that plays to its strengths, and it's not just if we don't do it like this, it's not going to work. And it's worked recently. Hugh Freeze, on the other hand, his best years were well behind him, and I would even say his best years were behind him at Liberty when Auburn hired him. His last offense at Liberty was not very good. Contrast that with USF last year, where you have a top 5 quarterback in the sport and a top 10 offense overall. That's different. But it's different because it's been able to innovate and change, and that is something that I think he's a forward-thinking guy because he can blend from. This is a guy who was at Iowa State and he does the veer and shoot thing, and he was under Jim Tressel at Ohio State when he was a GA like that. Like there's so many different influences there that I think it's going to be more than just. All right, when they have this figured out, we're done. Like we're toast.
Cooked.
You need to find a new coach at that point.
He is Justin Ferguson of the Auburn Observer joining us today on Sports Call. Ferg, as always, we appreciate the time. What you got going on with the Observer this week and throughout the summer?
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy time at the Observer. So we get this, we get the local folks got a really good amount of time with Alex Golesh on Monday night. So, like, I say this all the time, like, media days is for everybody else, right? You know, if you cover Auburn, like, you know, you want to talk to Alex Golesh, you want to talk to the players and all that, but it's like, it's for the national folks. It's for the other folks to come here because they don't get the same opportunities we get. But to be able to sit down and talk with these guys again. So we got a ton of stuff, about a half hour on Monday night, and it's a ton of personnel stuff, injury updates, who's been standing out. It's a lot of, like, real nitty-gritty, like, detail heading into fall camp. So you can check that out at the Observer. That's out today. I'll have coverage from here in Tampa, working on a Byrum Brown piece, kind of looking forward to that. And, yeah, we got some more stuff. Got a little bit of basketball as they get closer to heading out to Greece. So a ton of fun stuff at the Observer. And I'll tell folks, if you want to subscribe to the Observer, like, literally this is the best time to do it because between now and the end of July, we're going to keep our $60 a year for your first year. Our prices are about to go up. We're shifting them up a little bit because of different things that I explained at the Observer. So that goes into effect on August 1st. So if you subscribe to the Observer for your first year for $60, like, literally it's the cheapest price you're ever going to get. So do it, jump on it, and if you don't know us, it's a lot of nerd stuff about Auburn football and basketball, and we have podcasts as well, and we email it all to you as soon as it drops. So go to the Observer, sign up, and you'll get a full year. You'll get all football season, all basketball season, pretty much all the off season, and you won't get a better deal than right now. So check it out.
And it's great stuff, which, again, may or may not be overthought, but we love to overthink about Auburn football and basketball.
I mean, you know, where else, I will say it, where else are you going to see, like, okay, this dude wrote 4,000 words on Auburn's red zone offense. Like, that's the kind, if that interests you, come check us out. If that doesn't interest you, we would still like you to check us out anyway.
He is Justin Ferguson, Auburn Observer. Justin, we appreciate the time. Thanks for chatting with us today.
I appreciate it, boys.
That is Justin Ferguson of the Auburn Observer today on Sports Call.